Hey everybody, welcome back. You get to see a filthy, dirty workshop today. Everything has just been a nightmare between summertime and vacations and family obligations and having to get stuff built and get things out the door. This box has actually been done since the middle of June, and I haven't even had a chance to take a video of it, so I'm like a month behind on that. But what you're looking at is a two-tube GS35b. It is one piece, but the pieces are separate, but you see that there's brackets on it. The two pieces go together. There is no high voltage or cabling outside of the box. There's no wires hanging off the back. There's no blower hanging off the top. The blower is hanging off. It's a very low speed, high pressure blower hanging off the bottom of the power supply cabinet in the back. Up top, you have two RF connections in the back, and you have a power cord. That's it. You got a circuit breaker there for circuit protection, but that does not turn the unit on. When you operate this unit, all you do is you pop first switch on. That starts the blower, turns the filaments on, and then it starts the auto start circuit. So you have 3 minutes before the high voltage comes on, and the high voltage has a soft start also. You have plate voltage meter, you have plate current meter, input tune variable, output tune obviously variable. I'm going to show you a picture of the inside before the high voltage comes on. Look at that. Woo! Shiny, 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 shiny. Shiny, shiny. Woo! Vacuum variable on the tune side, blah, 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 blah. All right, now, I am going to just put the camera down for 1 second. I'm going to put a couple screws in this lid because I don't like running things without the lid on. I apologize in advance if it rattles, but I'm not going to put all like 12 screws in right now. Okay, so the lid is back on. It's in the warm-up mode. We're starting off with a 1000-watt slug here on a Bird 483P. The peak kit is on. We are driving it with, this is a 2x4, but I've got this thing turned all the way down. You do not need a 2x4 to drive this thing. You can drive this box with a 2-pill or a 3-pill or a big striker or whatever the hell you want. But this is what I had laying around, so I had to make do. Let me put this thing in standby here. Yeah, we're in standby. We're going to look at the drive. Let's see here. I don't know if you guys have ever seen my test rack, but I built this test rack. I have a signal generator up top, which we're not going to use today. I have my favorite type of single final radio. I have 3 bird meters, all with peak reading capabilities. I'm sorry, 2 of them peak reading capabilities. This one is just used for reflect when I'm tuning amplifiers and things or looking at stuff. I keep slugs in all the line sections with the peak kits. I can monitor my radio. I can monitor my driver at the same time. I can monitor reflect at the same time. These are the various drivers that I use. More bird meters. There's a main on and off switch that powers everything. I have a power supply there, blah, blah, blah. Very simple. So, back to the point. This is... Whoop. Okay. And did you see that? That was the step start. We are now idling at around 4,500 volts on the plate. We've got your driver here. I've got it turned down really low, and I've got the radio turned down. So let's look at what this thing is doing just for drive. 1000-watt slug. We're looking at the bottom of the scale. Let me zoom in on this thing a little bit here. Okay, 1000-watt slug, bottom scale. Come on. So that is, let's see here, 100, like a 50-watt carrier. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh. So we're doing about 550 watts. Okay, we're putting 550 watts into 2 GS35Bs. Now let's swap the slug. Let's put a 10,000-watt slug in. Okay. So the box should be pretty close to being tuned and loaded. One thing I would like to say about this box that you guys aren't going to realize, because I'm not going to take it all apart to show you, but this amplifier is the definition of heavy duty. You've got a 2 amp continuous duty plate transformer. You've got a 9 amp custom built 240 volt filament transformer. I didn't buy anything off the shelf. You got a vacuum tuner on the tune side, you got a gigantic load on the load cap on the load side, you got a big gigantic relay in the bottom of this thing. You've seen all the metal and the heavy tank coil, you've seen the pass-through, you've seen the high voltage and stuff. There's no wires or high voltage outside this box. When this customer gets this box, he's going to plug it in the wall, hook up his coax, he's done. That's it. There's no interconnections between stuff and lugs on the back or any of that bullshit. I gave him a manual key, which is useful like when you're checking like your idle current and stuff like that. But this box has, again, a 2 amp continuous duty plate transformer. It weighs 100 pounds on its own. He wanted heavy duty. Consequently, we don't get a lot of voltage drop, and this thing is basically chooching along at 4 kV, so it doesn't require as much drive as lower voltage boxes. It just really works great, guys. So you got a 2x4 here, but again, we're turned way down. You saw we had 550 watts of drive. We've got a 10,000 watt slug. We are in peak mode. So we are going to key. That is a 1,000 watt carrier. Just under 7,000. Now I'm going to try to load this box out a little bit. Just want to make sure I'm doing it right. Let's see here. God, I need another hand. Hold on. Let me set the camera up like this. So this, hold the camera for me. There we go. All right. Okay, you guys see that? Let's see if I can load it out a little bit. Audio 7,000. Now let me see something here. So that's 7,000 watts PEP. Now, if you want to give this thing a little more hammer, that's a 12, 13, 1400 watt carrier. Let's increase the carrier a little bit. So we're keying it at 2 gram. We're swinging 7. Pulling forward on the plate current. And we are not dropping beneath 4 kV. So that's it. She runs easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Not a very difficult box to run. Doesn't require a ton of drive. She does 7,000. I actually saw a hair more than that last week when I was testing it, but pretty simple amp. You know, you could run a foot pedal on this if you want, but it's got an auto key. Doesn't matter. But you're pulling just under 2 amps, somewhere around 1.75 amps. Still got juice left in it, man. It's got a 2 amp continuous duty power supply. Now, I'll tell you a sad story about this amplifier. The gentleman is a friend of mine. Matter of fact, I'm going to shut this thing down. Let me just let it cool down for a second while I talk. So the buddy of mine that bought this, he bought this from me 15 years ago when parts were cheaper, and he said to me, he goes, you know, I want this thing as heavy as possible. I said, I want a huge plate transformer. I want, you know, whatever. And so we bought everything that you see here. And I just never got around to building it. And it wasn't an issue. He took his station down, I had my shop apart, back and forth, and we had major life changes between the two of us. And long story short, the guy was ready for it this year. And he goes, hey, do you want to do it? I said, yeah, I'll bang it out. So I built this box in like 3 weeks. Like, it wasn't even an issue. And right when I got the box done, I called him up. This gentleman lives in Canada, and it's a real sad story. The guy was excited. I was looking at building a crate for this thing a couple weeks ago. During those Canadian wildfires, he lost his house, burned his goddamn house to the ground. I've actually been considering setting up a GoFundMe for him or something. I got to talk to him about that, but I'm not going to say his name, but he's a good friend of mine. He lives in Canada, and but either way, his box is done. I don't know what he's going to plan on doing with it. I don't know if he's going to want to sell it or if he's going to want to have me send it up there eventually. But either way, I wanted to show you guys a Mountaintop Electronics 2-tube GS35b. Basically, it's all one unit. They do not separate. Built heavier than a brick shithouse. 2 amp continuous duty transformer. This box is a monster. You know, again, if it was me, I would run this thing with a 3-pill and a single final radio, or maybe 4 1446s and like a striker or something. But you know, you do whatever you want with it. One of the questions that I've gotten, and I wanted to touch base on it real quick, was when we talk about drive, you always want to make your big box produce a carrier of 25%, hopefully, of whatever your total modulated output is. So, you know, if we're doing, you know, 6,000 watts, a 1,500 watt carrier is fine. You know, you're doing 7,000, maybe just a hair more or a hair less, whatever. You want to sound good. You want headroom. You don't want to get crunchy. But one of the things that people don't realize about amplifiers, especially tube amplifiers, when you start building them, is that they exaggerate the carrier under most conditions. So even though your final output may be, let's say, 12 times multiplication, your carrier power is usually something like 20 times multiplication. And I don't have the exact technological reason for that, but it's true. And that's why running radios with like a variable carrier control become a thing when you start running bigger boxes. I am not one of those guys that wants you to have a 1/4 watt swinging to bejesus. That's not my thing. But FYI, if you want to make your life a little easier, get yourself a radio with a variable carrier control when you start running boxes. And it's nice to have a radio that has variable output, not just the carrier, but you can adjust the total output. That's sometimes what we use these attenuators for on these drivers, is just to cut the total power back. So you got to play with things, but like, you know, I set the radio, I usually set these boxes up for maximum PEP, and then I just adjust the carrier on the radio, and then that puts me wherever I want it to put me. So get a variable carrier control. It'll make your life a little easier. All right, that's the Mountaintop Electronics 2-tube GS35b. I'll see you.